Good afternoon. It's Friday, the 14th of August. I'm Erin Viner. This is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. Security forces have raised the level of alert across the old city of Jerusalem, as well as in prisons holding Palestinian detainees, amid concern over the potential outbreak of violence due to the deteriorating condition of hunger-striking security prisoner Mohammed Alan. The 31-year-old member of the Islamic Jihad terror organization has reportedly now lost consciousness after refusing food for 59 days. Alan was hospitalized last week at the Barzilai Medical Center in Ashkelon, where physicians say that he is currently sedated and receiving oxygen. According to hospital officials, he began to experience seizures and hallucinations and required resuscitation this morning. The prisoner's supporters have been holding demonstrations on his behalf outside the hospital against the chance that he would be force-fed in the wake of the enactment of Knesset legislation a month ago permitting physicians to administer nutrition against prisoners' will in efforts to save their lives. Minister of Science, Technology and Space Danny Danon has been named as the next ambassador to the United Nations. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made the appointment in his role as foreign minister. Danon will replace outgoing ambassador Ron Prosor in the prestigious diplomatic post. The 44-year-old father of three currently chairs the powerful Likud Central Committee as well as the World Likud Organization. In recent years, he's publicly sparred with the Prime Minister over many internal party issues, and Netanyahu fired him from being Deputy Defense Minister last year for having openly criticized the government's handling of the conflict with Gaza that he saw as insufficiently aggressive. In today's announcement, however, the Prime Minister called Danon the best choice to represent Israel, its truth and its interests in the global arena, and hailed his experience in dealing with international relations for over 2 decades. The ambassador-elect thanked the Prime Minister for his support and said that he vows to do all that he can to promote the just positions of the Jewish state at such challenging times. The opposition Zionist Union Party was quick to denounce Danon's appointment, including the release of a statement reading, "Houston, we have a problem," in reference to Danon's current position as Minister of Space. The party pointed out that Danon is considered to be one of the Likud leaders on the far right who is strongly opposed to a two-state solution with the Palestinians. The faction then went on to slam his selection as another nail in the coffin of the country's foreign relations and to accuse Netanyahu of working to arrange positions for his political cronies rather than act as the strategic leader so critically needed by the nation. After news of the appointment, Knesset Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee Chairman Tzachi Hanegbi announced his plans to run for the chairmanship of the Likud Central Committee in Danon's place. Hanegbi is coalition chairman as well as the head of the Likud faction at the Knesset. He already served as director of the Central Committee for 8 years before leaving the party in 2005 to join the Kadima faction and returning to Likud 2 years ago. Minister of Culture and Sports Miri Regev also announced her own intention of competing for the position, saying that today she received hundreds of requests from committee members urging her to do so. In other news, 2 more Israeli Arabs have been indicted on charges of attempting to join the Islamic State by traveling to Syria through Turkey. One of the suspects, Kamis Salameh, was charged by the Lod District Court of illegal contact with a foreign agent. According to the indictment, the 20-year-old contacted a man identifying himself as a high-ranking member of ISIS on Twitter, whose instructions he then followed. After passing some sort of a familiarity test about the organization, he arrived in Istanbul on July 20th and then made his way to a town near the Syrian border. Right before he was set to make contact with an Islamic State operative, he was caught and arrested by Turkish police, who deported him back to Israel. The second suspect is Fares Srita, who has been indicted by the district court in Jerusalem. The 18-year-old lived in the United States over the past year and is suspected of flying to Turkey with the intention of crossing into Syria so that he could join ISIS along with 2 other family members. He was denied entry into Turkey, though, because his passport had expired, so he returned to his home village of Kfar Aqab in Israel and maintained contact with his relatives who did manage to reach Syria. He was later arrested by the Shin Bet, joining the ranks of a number of Israeli Arab citizens who have been caught after serving with or trying to join the extremist Islamic forces. And the United States is now investigating allegations that the Islamic State used chemical weapons against Kurdish forces in northern Iraq this week. According to the spokesman for the National Security Council, Alistair Baskey, the most recent reports follow similar previous claims, which Washington views very seriously. He said that the U.S. is now trying to gain more information about what happened in the town of Makmur, which is not far from Erbil, on Wednesday. The German Defense Ministry says that 60 Kurdish fighters training with them in the area suffered breathing difficulties after an ISIS attack, in one of the telltale signs of chemical weapons use, although neither German nor Kurdish sources were able to specify which type might have been used. Turning to the Iranian nuclear deal, and U.S. State Department spokesman John Kirby was asked whether Secretary of State John Kerry remains confident that Congress will approve it amid continued skepticism on Capitol Hill as to the merits of the agreement.
The Secretary, number one, is very confident in the merits of the deal, and right. He was, I think, very clear about that the other day up there in New York City. And he wants the deal examined on its merits. And when you look at it from the facts of it, when you really read it, it clearly demonstrates that by preventing Iran from possessing nuclear weapons capability, it makes the region safer, it makes us safer, it certainly makes our allies and partners safer. And so that's what he wants the debate and discussion to be about, the merits of the deal. And he has said, not just in this week, but previously, that he's confident that when it's examined on its merits, it will pass muster in Congress. And I think he said as recently as the other day, that he's confident that it will get the approval that it needs in Congress. But I also think he said he's not taking any vote for granted, and that's why he continues to engage with members of Congress and will continue to engage right up until September. He's not taking anything for granted.
But the fact that no other senator has announced opposition thus far is a good sign, isn't it?
I think, so far, yes. I think as you look at who has come out publicly for and against, it certainly reaffirms the Secretary's confidence that it will get the approval that it needs from Congress. But again, he's going to continue to work the phones. He's going to continue to answer questions. He's going to continue to communicate with members of Congress to address whatever remaining concerns there may be, and he's not going to take anything for granted.
And now for a look inside of Iran from a Jewish-American journalist working for the Forward newspaper. After 2 years of requests, Larry Kohler SS received special permission from the authorities in Tehran to travel around the Islamic Republic, where he met with ayatollahs and generals, as well as ordinary Iranians. Israel Television's Oren Nahari spoke with Kohler SS and asked him about his impressions.
Well, I'd actually lived in Iran for 2 years, shortly before the Shah was overthrown. I was a much younger man. It was shortly after I got out of college. So part of my interest in going back was to see what might be the same and what might be different. The cities had grown exponentially. The people were a whole different generation who, many of them, most of them probably demographically were born after the revolution. So they'd grown up in these conditions.
You sensed curiosity for you as a person, as a representative, let's say, of Judaism, of America, the great Satan?
Yes, absolutely. This was an insatiable curiosity, and even among people who voice a great deal of hostility towards America and certainly towards Israel, they would go out of their way every minute or two to say, this has nothing to do with you or with the American people or with you as a Jewish person. It was quite surprising to me, even among the Revolutionary Guards who were guarding Khomeini's tomb, which is like, the inner sanctum of political sanctity and sacredness. I told them I was an American Jew. They put me to the head of the line and let me in with my camera, which is against the rules, and then asked if they could take a picture with me.
Interesting. Did they want you to give a message, let's say, to America, to Obama, to Israel? We are not the devils, or perhaps, yes, we want to destroy you?
In some cases, people were at pains to say we don't want to destroy Israel or we don't have hostility towards America. But I would not make that generalization. There were people who said we are hostile towards Israel. And they divided between two groups. People who said we are hostile towards Israel not because it exists, but because we're appalled by its policies. We think really... and then there were some people who said we oppose Israel's existence. I think Israel shouldn't be under any illusions, and I hope I'm not under any illusions. I talk to people including one Grand Ayatollah who talked about destroying the State of Israel. To me, the important thing was that there were other opinions, including other opinions from other Grand Ayatollahs, that showed me there is debate and division and dissent. And for someone who faces Iran as an adversary, it's important to be aware of that. Monochromatic pictures can mislead you. Furthermore, when I spoke to people and they were bitterly critical of the government and even of Khomeini, and they were willing to go on the record and willing to be videotaped, which you can see the videotapes on our website, I thought they're not only telling me they're happy to see me, they're telling me they're happy to see me so they can complain about their government.
Some of the people who came to you against the Iran nuclear agreement did not come from the hardliners, but you've met also people who were against this deal from the opposite side. Iranians who say you're strengthening the Ayatollahs, you're strengthening the oppressors.
The person who told me that in particular and with a great deal of intensity is one of the handful of living Grand Ayatollahs. I'm not an expert in Shia Islam, but you have your Ayatollahs and you have a handful of Grand Ayatollahs who people rely on for like their halakhic decision making. And he's kind of his name is Yosef Sana'i, and he sided very strongly with the so-called Green Movement in 2009 and protested bitterly when they were repressed. And he said, "What are you doing here? Everybody knows that there was going to be an agreement at the end of this long talks. So why didn't they throw in a lot of things that are really important? Why didn't they throw in human rights? Why didn't they throw in freedom of speech, freedom of writing? Right now, all you have an agreement is for money. It's just about money." And he was very bitterly disappointed about this.
This year's number of immigrants is well on its way to surpassing that of 2014, which was itself a strong year for newcomers. That's the word from Jewish Agency Chairman Natan Sharansky while speaking with IBA's Eli Wogelenter.
This year, like all the last 5-6 years, Aliyah will continue to increase, its increase. Whether there will be continued increase of Aliyah from Ukraine, and we went from 2,000 to 6,000 in 1 year. I think it will go to 7,000 or 8,000 this year. The continuous increase of Aliyah from Russia, specifically from Moscow and St. Petersburg, and if they were increased to 4,000, probably it will be increased to 5,000 this year. And for many years we didn't see increase of Aliyah from Moscow and St. Petersburg. And of course, continues the big wave of Aliyah from France. Hopefully will reach 10,000 Jews this year. I want to remind you, only 3 years ago it was 1,500, 3,000, then 7,000, now 10,000. We can have more and more. Here, the crucial question becomes whether we are ready to respond with the needs for absorption, whether there will be more opportunities for jobs, whether the diplomas of those who are coming from France will be recognized, and whether they will find more creative opportunities for solving the problem of housing for new immigrants. So there are challenges and headaches for all of us, but it's great process of gathering of exiles. When I came a few years ago to Jewish Agency, Aliyah was on the level of 15,000, 16,000. Now it's on the level of 30,000, and we are thinking about bigger figures.
The Moscow and St. Petersburg, why is there suddenly a big increase? What?
That's an interesting phenomenon, because if increase from Ukraine is because of the hardships of war, increase from Russia is mainly because there are more and more people who feel that that there is like a new wall emerging between Russia and the free world. Not the Iron Curtain, but businessmen feel that economic cooperation becomes more difficult. People of culture feel that the cultural activity in Russia becomes more closed. And so people feel less comfortable, and they don't know what will be in the future. And they want, if God forbid there will be some changes, they want to be on the right side of history. And Israel is a very good side for history.
The boycott, divestment, and sanctions campaign against Israel was officially launched back in 2005. IBA's Eli Wogelenter asked Times of Israel editor-in-chief David Horovitz why efforts to combat the movement have only recently swung into high gear.
I think those of us whose main orientation is somewhere in the sort of Israel diaspora world have been very conscious of BDS for a long time, not because it's ruining the Israeli economy, but because you could see the impact it was having on public opinion, especially on campuses. You know, in Britain there's a long history of Israel having a problematic situation on campus, but it spread to America. It seemed to register in Israel just a few weeks ago, mainly because of the effort to boot Israel out of world soccer. Right? If you're being told that the Palestinians are pushing to get you kicked out of FIFA, and that means that your local soccer teams can't play in Europe and your national team would be kicked out of international competitions, wow, that starts to impact lots of Israelis who are not otherwise particularly interested in certain processes going on abroad. So I think that's what brought it home, and then it was sort of front page news in the main tabloid papers here in a way that it hasn't been. And all of a sudden, Israel woke up and said, oh my goodness, lots of the world really hates us, and this is so unfair, and why don't they understand? And it just wasn't at that level of the public consciousness before. I don't, however, see any significant effort by the government to fight it. I see a lot of rhetoric. I see, all kinds of ministers who are supposed to be responsible for this, who are, what, God heaven forbid, there should be one minister? No, we need at least 6, right? And responsibilities split between various ministries. What you have seen is an effort among diaspora leadership, Sheldon Adelson, Haim Saban, this kind of...
from two different camps
coming together because of the seriousness of the issue. I don't know where that's going. I don't know how effective that's going to be. I know that Sharansky at the Jewish Agency has wanted to and has been sending emissaries to campus and so on. But we're in a very complicated situation. We really are. The kind of conflict that we face is not easily explained. It's not conventional warfare and it's not terrorism. It's this missile warfare and innocent people are killed inadvertently. And unless you look deeper, the best you might reasonably hope for is that a viewer who's not got any kind of connection says, oh, to hell with the lot of them. But a superficial look, well, there's more dead on the Palestinian side, and therefore it really requires explaining, and it requires good journalism. But it's not just PR. Everyone talks about Israeli PR. It's not coincidental that this strategy has been decided upon by our enemies. It's a very effective strategy. It's damaging for us in terms of the actual conflict and in the way the conflict is perceived. So this has to be taken seriously. So great that Israel kind of woke up to it. I don't think the government has woken up to it to the necessary degree. I think a great deal more needs to be done, first of all, to internalize what's going on, how problematic it is. Young minds on campus, well, you want to have, thank goodness there are programs like Birthright, for example, but I think a lot more internalization of what Israel is up against, and then a genuine, concerted, coordinated, all these words that do not apply to Israeli politics, that kind of effort needs to be made, because it's not destroying the Israeli economy, but it is making inroads in public opinion. You read some of these surveys in the States, Frank Luntz, largely Republican pollster, messenger, right? He says things like, you say the word Zionism on campus, forget it, you won't get a hearing. You're trying to make a Zionist argument, forget it. You can't use the word Zionism on campus. That's a really grim assessment by somebody who's coming to it neutrally. It's just not effective. Don't use that word. That's pretty sad. And that's just a little insight into how much of a struggle there is here.
The historic Maariv Bridge in Tel Aviv was officially closed down to traffic at midnight ahead of its imminent destruction to make way for the building of the light rail in the city. After thousands of people on social media announced plans to witness the demolition, police have had to reschedule the date that was expected to be sometime next week out of safety concerns. Dr. Yael Schuster is a scientist at the Weizmann Institute, an educator and a mother. She combined her love of all three to create the KnowItAlls company, which encourages girls to be interested in science. Schuster shared her inspiration for the initiative with IBA's Laura Cornfield.
KnowItAlls was founded in order to give girls a sense of community and role models in order to inspire them and encourage them to take part in science. So our company has basically three things that we offer. We have a global community of girls who communicate with each other based on science. We have a series of books in which our heroines are 4 young girls who go on scientific adventures. And it comes with a kit in which the girl at home can experience the magic of science on her own.
Yeah, what inspired you to develop and found the KnowItAlls?
So I'm really passionate about trying to break down stereotypes and give women more opportunities. And I myself grew up in rural Virginia, and I think a sort of unusual sort of family. We were always encouraged very much in science and with playing with electronics kits and microscopes. And I really thought that that was how everybody grew up until I went and did my PhD in organic chemistry. And I found that the world of science is still very much a man's world, and I really wanted to do something about this. So now I have 2 kids of my own, and I'm very aware of the toys that they play with and the messages they get. And I noticed that there was a huge need to show female power figures and inspire girls, so I wanted to fix that.
Doctor, I called you Yael before, but of course you're a doctor. Dr. Suster, you're a Weizmann scientist, which is mainly research and academia based. Now being a female entrepreneur is a big shift. What's that like?
Yeah, it's definitely a big shift. It's pretty scary and it's a big leap of faith. But I have a great team that I'm working with, and we're hoping that all of this hard work will pay off. It's not a complete deviation from what I've been doing because I still get the opportunity to teach. Part of our ongoing mission with the KnowItAlls is also to give workshops for young girls, and we've actually just been booked to go to Facebook headquarters this fall and do a workshop for the daughters of Facebook employees. So I'm really excited about that.
One last question. What can our viewers do to get more involved and to bring their kids closer, their daughters closer to science and to the KnowItAlls?
So we are running a Kickstarter campaign until the end of the month where you can pre-order our first chemistry set. You can find this on the Kickstarter website or on our website, www.theknowitалls.co. You can also sign up on our website to be part of this international community. And just don't forget, it's really cool to be a know-it-all.
In financial news, the shekel today ended the trading week by gaining strength against all major foreign currencies. And due to the closure of the stock market on Fridays, here's a look at the closing numbers for the week. The IBA weather team tells us we're going to see another rise in temperatures tomorrow to unseasonably warm and dry levels. Here's the forecast at home and abroad over the next 24 hours. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. We hope you'll join us again tomorrow, and I'll be back to bring you the latest breaking news from Israel. I'm Erin Viner, wishing you a great evening and Shabbat Shalom from Jerusalem.